Okay, welcome everybody. Sorry to scare you. I do that, that's part of my job. We're gonna start, we're gonna break tradition. We're gonna break tradition and start on time. So, because we want to optimize the amount of time that we have with Sheri tonight. So, how many of you are here seeing Sheri for the first time? Raise your hand. Oh my gosh. Oh good, you're in the retreat. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on an introduction. Most of you have Sheri's book. Sheri is 100 times better than her book, but it's a great place to start and it's a good toolkit that you can use. That's how the book is written. It's not really a page turner. It's meant to be, oh, I need help with this, look in the book. And we hope that it's useful. But tonight, Sheri keeps shortening her, the back. It's because of the speakers, yeah. Sorry about that. She keeps shortening her presentation because usually when we ask for questions on the RSVP, we get, what, a dozen, 15 questions, something like that? You guys gave us 2 pages of questions. So we're excited about this. Stop. I mean, the answer to some of the questions is read the book. But Sheri's here, so she's going to spend most of the time with you with just Q&A. So with that, please welcome Sheri Glucoft Wong.
Let me just find out, how many of you here have preschoolers? Raise your hand. How many of you have kindergartners, first grade, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, 8th. How many of you have kids older than 8th grade, like high school? How many of you have kids even older than high school? How many of you have kids younger than preschool? Okay, I'm going to cover the whole gamut. Okay? So tonight we're going to talk about the attitudes and practices that you can bring, or in some cases, better not to bring, to your parenting to support your kids' well-being, their can-do attitude, their ability to be effective, and their resilience. It's all order, but we're going to cover all of that. And I'm actually going to be talking about your daily parenting, because your daily parenting can actually empower your kids' confidence, their competence, and their capacity to manage setbacks, and you can actually influence your kids to turn those challenging experiences into assets for their growth. And we're going to work on that tonight. And the reason why I'm talking about daily life is because daily life's repetitive messages, the messages you parents are giving your kids, are so much more impactful and influential than the big teachable moments that we try to have with our kids. Parents love teachable moments. Kids, not so much. So before I get into all of this, I want to just give a few words about development to give you guys some framing. And here's the thing, kids are not born capable. So, you know, I have seen this happen a number of times, what I'm about to say, is I've been with people in my office or socially where they have, say, a 3-month baby on a blanket on the floor, and the baby starts to fuss and is clearly uncomfortable, and the parents aren't making a move to the baby. What's going on? Why aren't you doing something here? Pick them up, doing something. Oh, we're trying to teach them to self-soothe, they tell me. Now, that is a good goal. You want your kid to self-soothe. And you want your baby actually to self-soothe. That's how we get them to sleep through the night. It's not like they don't wake up, they just get themselves back to sleep. We want self-soothing. But self-soothing isn't the thing you're born with. So how does a baby learn to soothe themselves? Is they get soothed, and they learn that experience, and they learn what does that, and they do it for themselves. The same thing with people who talk to me about their kids aren't self-directed. They're not self-directed with their homework. They're not self-directed about limiting their screen time. They're not self-directed about all kinds of things, their chores. I always have to remind them. The way kids get to be self-directed is that parents are directive. They scaffold their kids, they prompt their kids, they serve as leaders or directors, so their kids introject that sense of leading themselves, directing themselves. And similarly, the same thing is true of confidence. What gives your kids confidence is you having confidence in them. Now, a lot of you are thinking, I wish I could have confidence in my kid, but I kind of don't. I don't have confidence they're going to go to sleep if I walk out of the room, the lights on, and they're doing something. I don't have confidence. Do what it takes to get that confidence. Do the kind of leadership or direction or managing that you need to do until you can get confidence. Because your kids are going to get the confidence in themselves from you having confidence in them. By the way, everything I'm saying in this little talk I'm giving right now, some of it I hope answers some questions for you, but a bunch of it's going to raise some questions for you, and that's good because we're going to have a question time. So I also want to say that as your kids take things on, hopefully you let them go and let your kids take it on. And some parents aren't so comfortable with that. They feel kind of dumped. And the fact is, it is a kid's job to dump their parents. We want our kids to take that on. And if you can treat your kids, that's the part of treating your kids so that they have that sense of confidence. You have backed off. And actually, you've given them a chance to try it before you've taken it on. So the key with your kids is being able to showing up for them in their lives, but in a way that allows them to have the kinds of experiences that they are going to learn and grow from. Not so easy, especially that second part about letting them have some of those challenging experiences. We don't like to see our kids stressed. So one of the things we do is we manage things so our kids won't be stressed or upset. The other thing that we do is we get in front of it so it won't happen. When it does happen, we step in to handle it so it'll stop and won't keep happening. And that's a little bit misguided, and let me talk to you about that. First, I think I'm going to tell you a little story. There's a kid, let's call her Katie, was in 2nd grade, and her parents were very, very upset because she was being bullied and harassed by a violent kid. This mainly happened on the yard. It's been very traumatic for this kid. As it turns out, what happened to the kid was another kid stomped on her toe. This is not bullying, it's not violence, and it wasn't even ongoing. The parents also felt she was being singled out by a kid. Turns out the toe stomper was an equal opportunity toe stomper. She stomped lots of people's toes in the class. She was a kid who had trouble with like using language for expression, so she had a tendency to stomp on toes in particular. She didn't hit or push, she just stomped on toes. Most of the other kids, I think maybe even all of them, when she stomped on their toe, their main response was to say, ouch, maybe to tell the teacher or to move away from the kid. This kid went home, and when the parents said, how was your day, she said, this kid stomped on her toe. Oh no, she stomped, did it hurt? Yes, I thought it broke my foot. Oh no, it broke your foot. And does she do that a lot? Yes, she does that a lot. The kid didn't mention that it was to other kids. So then the parents thought it was odd. So the parents were very upset. They came to the school, they talked to the head of the school to say this terrible thing is going on, but the way they described it wasn't recognizable to the teacher because it sounded like a bigger deal, because it actually was a small deal. If your kid's toe gets stomped on, that is not a big deal. It's a little deal. It's a deal. It's not fun to have your toe stomped on, but it's not a big deal. The parents were very protective, very well-meaning people. They really loved their kid, but they made a big deal of this, and they got so excited and anxious about it that they kept asking the kid each day, how was today? Did anything happen today? And you know, your children love you. If you are somebody that tends to interview your kid for pain, they're going to provide that for you. They'll find something to be upset about so that you can feel good, because you want to know that you're there to take care of them. So every day there was something, and this kid ended up, she was an anxious kid, so things were hard for her. So when the mom said, tell the teacher you need to leave early for a dental appointment, the kid was too anxious and shy to tell the teacher that. So when the parent had to come in the room and get the kid said, well, the teacher wouldn't let me go. She didn't mention I didn't tell her I had to go. So these kinds of things were happening. All of this was designed on the parents' part to help their kid. They were trying to support her and make things better for her. But as you can see, it kind of went awry. So let me talk to you a little bit about what the issues are in this. Number one, we don't want our kids to feel stressed. Well, stress is an interesting thing. A little bit of short-term stress now and then is actually a good thing for your kids. It actually grows brain cells. Your kids need that. Not beyond the part of needing to have the experience that something's hard. It has a beginning, a middle, and end. It moves on. They can handle it. They can recover from that. Aside from that experience, it actually inside grows brain cells. Ongoing stress that isn't attended to or supported, the kids aren't supported by a caring adult, that's problematic. That stimulates cortisol, not good for anybody's health. But the short-term stress, or that arousal, is actually good for you. That's the first thing. The second thing I want you to know is that rather than staying vigilant so your kids don't have moments like that, you want to help them pair a difficult moment with a positive moment. Because scientists tell us that neurons that fire together wire together. So there's a lot of things in life that kind of go wrong for all of us, or information that comes to our attention that we worry about. But if the next thought is it's going to be okay, I know how to deal with that. It's a short arousal and then it calms down, and even you guys are growing brain cells. The same thing is true for kids. If that kid comes home and says, the kid stomped on my toe, and they say, oh, I'm sorry that happened. Then what happened? Oh, another kid told her not to do it again, and then I went somewhere else. That's great. Somebody helped you, and you knew what to do next. So now we have, here was a hard experience, is paired with encouragement that you can do that. You can handle that. And for bonus points, that there are good people out there that will help you and support you. Those are neurons that fire together, wire together. The other thing that's important is when we keep interfering with letting our kids have these kind of hard moments, one of the things that we end up promoting is a thing called synapse pruning. There's certain experiences that we don't want our kid to have. I don't want my kid to be disappointed. I don't want my kid to have a lonely moment. I don't want my kid to be bored. I don't want to have this or that. then what happens is the synapse that we just talked about, that can do, okay, it happens, but then I know what to do, that all gets pruned out, and then your kid doesn't have that capacity. So believe it or not, I'm here preaching to you, let your kids have some hard moments, and especially the kind that are just part of childhood. We've all had them, we've all gotten through them, and those of you who have had really rough, difficult times, don't assume that even if the small things that happen to your kids seem familiar of the big things that happen to you. Don't put your grown-up filter on that. So those of you that have questions about that, we're going to have a question time to talk about that. So I think this is a good moment to talk about what resilience actually is. So here I'm going to define it for you. The first thing in resilience is that you have the sense that things are going to work out, that you can find a way to do something about most difficulties. That's what a can-do attitude is. If I'm driving on a road trip and I realize, oh my gosh, my gas tank is almost empty, but I realize I'm right around a bunch of gas stations, I'm going to find one. It's going to be okay. Or I've got a hybrid. I've got longer to go than I thought. There's that can-do feeling, like there's a problem, but you can do something about it. The second is that when you can't do something about it, that you can get through whatever the problem is. The worst that happens is you run out of gas, you have to call somebody, but that you can get through the hard thing. You wish that didn't happen. You wish you didn't get audited for your taxes. There's a lot of things we wish didn't happen, but we can get through it. Resilience is just having that feeling that it'll pass and you'll be okay. The other is that even in the midst of having a hard time, you're able to take in the good stuff. What is around you, who helps you, what you're grateful for, how it could have been worse, so this isn't so bad, to keep it in proportion. And to remember that around you there are people who care about you, who help you, who forgive you, who love you, even though that thing happened. So all of that adds up to having a sense of well-being that gets you through challenges. And it restores you when you have a hard moment. So in family life, our kids are getting a stream of messages all the time from us about whatever is going on. And the messages that we're giving them, and about themselves, and about their interactions, and about what we expect. And most of the messages that parents who would bring their kids to this school, most of the messages that you give your kids are really good messages. They're supportive messages, they're loving messages, they're encouraging messages. But sometimes we give our kids inadvertent messages. We didn't intend to say the things that we're saying. We think we're trying to handle something. So let me give you an example. One is when we rush too quickly to get involved when there's a little mishap or misstep somewhere out there. So there's a 4th grade girl, her name is Vivian, and she came home from school and said to her parents, you know, I think my teacher misgraded a paper of mine. She lowered my grade and circled this thing on my paper, and I think I got it right. And she said it was wrong. So the parents looked at it, and the mom said, you know, you're right. She made a mistake. It would have been nice if the kid said, oh, good, then I did get it right. And the mom said, yes, you did, and maybe you want to show that to the teacher so she can rethink. I think she'll figure out that that's right too, and you can work that out with her. That would have been nice, but the mom didn't say that. But instead the mom said, oh no, this is right, you got it right, she was wrong. I'm going to write a note. I'm going to write a note for you to bring. Unfortunately, this mom was an attorney, so her note was a little bit more like a brief. It was 3 pages. She was very proud of it. She brought it in to show me. I wrote 3 pages to make the point and explain, and sent it in with the teacher. So the message to her kid, number 1, it's criminal to make a mistake. A whole brief has to be written about your mistake. The teacher made a mistake. She made such a big deal out of the teacher's mistake. You, Vivian, can't handle this kind of thing yourself. I have to step in with all my professional know-how to handle this. It takes a professional attorney for you to deal with your fourth grade teacher. This is a kid who didn't have confidence. And sadly, you know, it showed up in so many ways that got in her way socially. She kept being the know-it-all who had to know the answer, and when she was wrong, she was so ashamed, she got defensive. She had a lot of issues because, and the parents had no idea about the connection between that, which was a loving gesture from that mom, to the messages they gave. Another thing is when we turn like Katie's mom, where our overreaction turns what is just a passing, distressing moment into a tragedy, or as my mother would say, a big Megillah. Let me give you a good example of that. You've all had little babies who grew into toddlers, who were cruising around, holding on to things, pulling themselves up and pulling around, and then started to practice walking. And when they let go and took some steps, sometimes they would fall on their tushy. And when they did, the first thing they did was look at you. They'd fall, usually surprised that they were on the floor. They didn't know physics yet. They fell, they're on the floor, they look at you. If you went, they went, what? If you went, you're okay, get up, come on. They just kept going. They got their signals from you about whether that was a big deal or a little deal. Your children who learned to walk learned because you eventually figured out not to go so that they could keep going. This is what we have to do about everything that happens with our kids. We need to let the moment be a moment and see if they can help themselves. If your kid all by themselves was so surprised or so startled to be on the ground, then it's okay to comfort them and encourage them to move on. Here's another inadvertent message. Oli loves this one. Where the parent says, I say, how was your week? And the parent said, oh, we have a history test on Thursday, so it's been pretty stressful. I said, we have a history test? Oh yeah, we have a history test on Thursday, huh? Oh yeah, on Thursday we have a history test. We actually had one just 2 weeks ago. And I said, oh, we did, yeah. And then after a while, parent looks at me, are you teasing me? I am. Why? Because you already did 7th grade. It's your kid's turn. So this is the kind of thing that leads to parents having fights with kids about homework, as if you're the boss of their homework, it's your homework too. I had a parent come in one time that was so upset because their kid forgot their diorama, and she had worked on it all weekend. And you know, we want to let our kids have their turn at their childhood, and that you are not the boss of the homework. Who's the boss of your kids' homework, you guys? Your kid's the worker of their homework. Who assigned the homework? And so if the worker has some issues with their job, who do they talk to about it? Not their mommy and daddy, I hope. The teacher. You guys can be consultants. Hiring power, they can hire you. Can you help me with this? I'm having trouble figuring out how to do that. You can help them. If they don't treat you nicely when you're trying to help them, you can quit. But they can fire you if they don't like the way you're taking over the diorama too much. So here is the other thing. Here's a good message to give your kid, and I say this every time I talk to parents. There are 2 things children need to know to feel good about themselves. The first, you're special and unique, and there is no one else like you. The second message your children need to know is that they are just like everybody else. The art of parenting is knowing when to give which message. My favorite example is a kid comes home and says, I hate my nose, it's too big. Not the moment to say you're special and unique. And it's a moment to say, you know, you're just like everybody else. We all have something we don't like. We all have a nose. You know, these things happen. But that part is really important. And it's the basis of self-confidence. Because you want to know special and unique means you are seen. You matter as an individual. And just like everybody else means you belong. You're connected. Everyone goes through this. And those two messages are just at the heart of your kids' positive sense of themselves. So let me give you, I'm going to tell you a few things that you should put an asterisk next to in your mind while you're growing brain cells, because they're that important. One of them is this. When we single a kid out for being bad, like everybody else is at the dinner table and you're not coming when I call you. Everybody else cleaned up their thing and you didn't. You're not supposed to do that and you did. That kind of special and unique is not a good way to be special and unique, right? Nobody wants to be special and unique by being less than or wrong or bad. So what do you do when everybody else is at the table and that kid isn't? You say, we're all at the table now, come join us. This is the time when we're all doing this. If you're running a classroom, you say everybody's getting in their seat now and you need to get in your seat too, because that's what we're all doing. You get the kid to understand they are part of everybody else. When you set a limit, you say, this is what happens, it's bedtime. We're going to sleep now. Not you have to get into bed, you keep getting out of bed, say it's time for this, we all have our bedtime, we all go to bed when it's time. Try to support your kids in feeling just like everybody else when you're trying to corral their behavior. Two-way street. You want your kids to have regard for themselves, but self-regard is not self-esteem. Regard for yourself and others simultaneously, that's self-esteem. I have something to say, I hope you're available to listen to me. The regard in both directions. You took a turn, I would like to be able to have a turn too, and then you can say more after my turn. That way of relating so the other person feels seen and heard and like they matter lets you make a place for yourself to matter too. Now here's the thing about home. We want home to be a cozy refuge. We want our kids to be able to come home from their day of dealing with the world out there and relax and feel good. But home is also the place, the training ground where kids learn about how the world works. So at home, it is important that you support your kids to behave in ways that's going to work for them out in the world. If you decide that home is the place where you do all the accommodating, all the contouring, all the paving the path for them, and they don't have to have, they're not required to have regard for you, to speak in a way that's respectful, to give someone else a turn, to not belittle a sibling, to do what's expected or what they know their responsibility is, to cooperate with routines, to be able to get with the program. All of that, not that things don't go wrong sometimes, because they do, and people get tired, people get grumpy, things get overwhelming, but that you run your family life and the way people treat each other in a way that you know that if your kid behaves that way out in the world, it's going to serve them. So you ask yourself, is the way my kid talks to me and their siblings, would that work with a teacher? Would that work with classmates? Would that win them friends? Will that make them a beloved teammate? Will that eventually, the way they keep their room or manage things, make them a good roommate? Will that make them be the kind of person that will get hired and keep a job? Is somebody going to want to marry them? It's a good question to ask yourself as you look at what behavior you do and don't support at home. So I want you to remember also this thing that I have to tell parents everywhere. Those of you who haven't heard me say this, you really need to understand this. Your children are walking around thinking that their parents are rational. They actually believe this. They think that everything you do and say on purpose. They don't know that sometimes you have no idea what you're doing. They don't know that sometimes that just fell out of your mouth. They don't know that, we have legacy expressions that our parents gave us that we didn't even know how they got in there. And that we say these things. They think you mean what you say. They think it's on purpose. And so they think that if you always let them be the one that goes first, that if you always let them win games, when you play with them, then when they get to school or to birthday parties and they're playing games, they don't understand why the other people aren't letting them win. They think that's how it's supposed to work. My dad lets me win. My dad knows what he's doing. My dad's rational. Not so rational. Rational is helping your kids operate in a way that's going to work for them, that's going to endear them to people. I always tell parents with little kids when they argue about whether the little kid should be kept clean or not, toddlers, I always say, if I go to somebody's house and a kid who loves me, a toddler who loves me, runs toward me when I'm all dressed for work with peanut butter on their fingers, I am going to back away from them. Not a good reflex to have, not a good message to the kid. If they have clean fingers, it's going to be like this. The same thing with behavior. That kids who are respectful and kind are embraced. Kids who are abrasive or sarcastic or mean or push, kids back away from them, and that breaks my heart. I want you to support your kids to be enduring. I also want to say that if there is an issue at school that happens, parents ask me all the time, my kid, I got a phone call, my preschooler pushed another kid at school, my 4-year-old pushed another kid at school, and the school let me know that that happened. What should the punishment be at home? How should I handle that? Well, first of all, the first question is, did the school take care of that? Oh yeah, they talk to the kids and they work it out. So why do you have to do anything at home? We don't need double jeopardy. Let the school handle the school things. Your job is, number one, to say, I hear you had a tough day at school. I'm sorry it was hard. And to say, in our family, we don't push. We use our words, or whatever it is you want the kid to know, you can tell them, but you forgot that today and something happened, so tomorrow's another day. Be on your kid's side, support the values that the school is supporting so that you're aligned in partnership with the school, but be on your kid's side, support your kid. I want to talk about limits a little bit, because limits and boundaries are so supportive. Life is full of them. Your kids need to know how to manage. So you want to have empathy for their feelings, no matter what that feeling is. I have never met a kid whose feeling wasn't legitimate, ever, never. The feeling is always legitimate. The behavior, not so much all the time. If the behavior is out of bounds, you have to set limits. If your kid is screaming because they're upset, you can have heart for whatever disappointed or upset them, but you have to have limits for the behavior. And setting limits is not that branch of parenting that involves punishment. As a matter of fact, punishment doesn't work. I'm here to tell you honestly, punishment does not work. It will not change things. There's been all these longitudinal studies on it. What I'm saying is true. What does work? Results that make sense to the child. So my greatest example of this is on sports teams. If you have a kid that, or a grown-up even, that's out on the field and being disruptive to the game, they're called out and asked to sit on the bench for a while. It's not questioned, it's not, they might be grumpy about it, but it's understood that the game needs to go on, and it makes sense that if you're being disrupted, you need to go out there. It's not like the referee says, okay, you pushed a guy, so you lose your screen time tonight. That does not happen in sports. What happens is something that makes sense to the kids, and I've never heard kids questioning that that's how it works. The same thing at home. If you have somebody that's being really disruptive at a dinner table after you spent a long time making a nice meal, you ask them to take a break, and when they can behave nicely and join you, they can join you. That makes sense to a kid. So think about that. I know you're going to ask some questions about that. I also want to say that you don't want to use threats. The problem with threats, if you don't clean up your room, you don't get screen time tonight. If you don't do your homework, then I'm not reading, you don't get to get stories from me, or you don't get to go to the party later, or you don't get this or that. If then. If you keep acting that way toward your sister, you don't get to go with the family to I actually had a family that did it. If you keep treating your sister like that and keep teasing her and don't stop, you don't go with us to Lake Tahoe. The kid teased the sister again, okay, you're not going to Lake Tahoe. The dad had to stay home from Lake Tahoe. What are they going to do? They're not going to go to Lake Tahoe. Half the family couldn't go to Lake Tahoe. That didn't work out so well. What you want to do rather than threats is you need to spend some time over here, and when you can behave nicely, you can rejoin us. Timeouts, they're about taking a break to have a reset, not about doing time for your crime. It's okay if your kid goes to their room and reads a book or plays or something. They're taking a break. And when they can play nicely, when they can speak nicely, whatever it is you need, when somebody has been irresponsible with an iPad, they then, when you can use an iPad in a trustworthy way, you can play with it. When then, not if then. And by the way, when your kid isn't responsible with a screen, and you can't take the screen away because they do homework on it, it means they need more supervision. It means they don't get to be independent on the screen. I want to say a few more things about this, and then I want to actually talk about just a little bit more. As long as I'm on screens, let me tell you something about screens. Kids consider screens their friends. And you can't blame them for feeling that way. Their friends are really literally in the screen, right? They chat with their friends, they play. The screen is where they play. It's where they learn things that are cool and interesting, and Taylor Swift's new album. And, it's where they do connect with their friends. Screens matter to kids, and it's their friends. Don't be the enemy of screens. Don't be so down on screens. Your kids were born digital. Some of you were almost born digital. And they're here to stay. So don't be the enemy of your kid's screen. However, screens have their place in life just like everything else. And like so many things in life, when they're overdone, when they're done at a time when it's time to do something else. Reading is great, but not at 2 in the morning when you're in 3rd grade. Everything has its place, has its time. So rather than talking to your kids, parents always say, how much time should my kids spend on the screen? My kids spent 3 hours playing Fortnite on Saturday. What do you think about 3 hours playing Fortnite? I said, what else did they do that day? The parents always find that, well, why am I asking that? Because it matters. Because after you tell me that your kids spent the whole morning doing household chores, then played 2 games and a soccer tournament, and then went to their grandmother's house and then came home and wanted to play Fortnite, that's okay with me. If all they did is sat around and waited till you said okay that they could play Fortnite, that's another problem. You want your kids to have balance, and where screens, I'm talking about recreational screens, fit into balance. You want social media. You need to see how much your kid is ready for or not ready for, you middle school parents in particular. And that if you get any sense, if you're uncomfortable, don't use your discomfort to lock them out of things. Use your discomfort to lean in, to say, I need to know more about this. Or I'm not comfortable, I would need your password. I need to be able to see this. I need to be able to watch this. I need to be able to trust you. I was at another school last week and a woman raised her hand and said, the school gives our kids laptops and my kid's supposed to be doing his homework and he knows there's websites that we don't want him on. And he's supposed to be doing his homework, but we caught him going onto those websites he wasn't supposed to go on. 2 problems. Wasn't supposed to be there and was supposed to be doing homework and wasn't. So we got really mad and said, you can't do that. You need to only use it now. Nothing recreational, just homework. But he keeps going on to those websites and he keeps doing that. What do I do? And I said, how could he keep doing that if you're watching him now? Oh, what do you mean watching him? He just showed you that he's not reliable, that he goes places that he's not ready to be. And it sounds like he's not ready to manage himself. Remember what I said about self-directed? They needed to watch him. So what are we supposed to do? He does his homework in a public place. You check in randomly to be sure that's what's going on. And until you can trust him, you can't treat him like you expect him to be trustworthy. We want to let our kids do things when they're ready to do it, not before that. You know, there's something that every generation of parent says to their kids when they say, I'm going outside to hang out with my friends, or I'm going to go play, I'm going to go do something on the block. Where are you going? Who are you going to be with? This is when you need to be back. The same thing is true when your kids get on a screen. You want to know where they're going, and you want to lean in. If your kids want to do something that you aren't sure about or are pretty sure you don't want them to do it, do a trial of it yourself. Play that game yourself. Get onto that website, do that social media, sign up, and look at it yourself. So from a knowledgeable place, you're able to set a limit or allow something, and that you're clear. So keep boundaries really clear and don't have fights with your kid about screens. I keep saying, don't have dynamics about it. Have communication about it. Talk about it and let them know. Say, you know, I got on there. Here are the problems I have with it. So I have a new saying. I say, don't get mad, get clear. The same thing with that kid that kept going to the other websites. Don't be mad, be clear. And clear means that you do what you mean. They gave an inadvertent message. We tell you, kind of like a nag, that you're not supposed to do that, but we're not going to oversee it. We don't mean it. So be sure that your kids know when you mean something and when you don't. The other thing I want to say is that when you communicate with your kids, if you help them learn to make it right when they make a misstep instead of punishing them. If you are grateful when they're open with you and honest with you, even if they confess something that you're not glad happened, but you're so grateful they told you, and let them know that. If you keep whatever problem comes up right-sized, unlike little Katie's parents, your kids will be glad they talked to you and they'll continue to talk to you. And I want to tell you, having open communication with your kid is probably the most important goal you can have as a parent, raising them. That they talk to you, that they're glad they talk to you. Eventually, that they want you in their lives, they want to be in your lives. So having that kind of communication with them is really, really important. And as long as we're talking about communication, I have to say, because I always say, to have good communication with your kids, to really know what's going on with them, the most important word in your vocabulary just has 2 letters. It's O. When your kid comes home and tells you, I had a terrible day today, instead of, what happened? Did that kid stop on your toe again? This is going to make your kid anxious and regret that they shared with you. When they come home and say, I had a bad day today, and you say, oh, they say, yeah, do you know that instead of tacos, we had pizza again, and it didn't even have pepperoni? Oh, yeah, but my friend brought us sandwich, and that sandwich looked good, and he gave me his sandwich, and I gave him my pizza with no pepperoni. Oh, yeah, now we're friends. Oh, so that was the bad day, right? So when you say, oh, the rest of the story comes out. So even when it's a hard thing, I hate school, I'm never going back. You say, your kid says, I'm not friends with so-and-so anymore, and that's who you're having the kid of the family you're doing Thanksgiving with. You say, yeah. If you say oh to whatever comes up, more comes up. And, you know, every now and then I'll have a parent say to me, you mean all I'm supposed to do is say oh? I just say oh to my kid, that's all I ever say. I just go oh. And I said, no, when you get really good at it, you can go oh. You can have a whole conversation. So I also want to say, you can't control what happens to your kids. You can't arrange their friendships. You can't manage what's going to happen in their day. You can't get in the way of setbacks they'll have, of heartbreak they'll have. But you can influence what those experiences mean to them, whether they're big deals or little deals, or how you see them, or what the good things are that are out there, or your confidence in them that they can get through it. And if you can build a family life that encourages their confidence, that gives them the space to build their capabilities, then they will be able, with resilience, to navigate whatever life brings their way.